Gundam creator Yoshiyuki Tomino warns Japanese studios against emulating Disney's boring digital production system. Gundam creator says anime must not repeat Disney's worst mistake. I wanted to talk about these two articles because they kind of dovetail nicely to the two videos I made on how Godzilla Minus One really exposes Hollywood storytelling and the Hollywood blockbuster funding financing structure. So these two articles point to different areas of concern for the Gundam creator. One of them being the creative production environment and the other one being the creative production structure. And it's this latter that I want to focus on. So the Gundam creator asserts that Bandai is already picking up on some of Disney's bad habits, with it attempting larger projects while straying away from traditional animation. Empty blockbusters without any personality is how the Tomino describes Disney as a brand, and he explained that creators must be permitted to experiment, while executives like producers have to get their hands dirty when developing a project. Now, I completely agree with this assertion, but I want to offer up a little more details so we can look at things on a practical level. And the real contrast to be drawn here is corporate storytelling versus good storytelling or intimate storytelling. So what's going on with Disney is corporate storytelling. It's where you have a bunch of executives in a corporate structure with hundreds and thousands of people and dozens of departments all having their hands in the process of the creative process. Story ideas are usually run through committee, focus tested, and all sorts of opinions generated from people that frankly have no business giving opinions because they're not artistically trained, or more often than not, they're putting out notes and feedback to justify their own existence in this corporate structure. And it's almost besides the point if there's just one or two writers or a lead creator or something, because just by sheer volume of the number of people and the number of hands that these things have to pass through, just the whole thing gets watered down. It's almost impossible for you to wind up with a very intimate personal story that's driven by extremely clear, focused, emotional, instinctual drive. Now, that doesn't mean you can't wind up with a good movie or a good story under a corporate structure, but the reality is that if you get a result like that, it's almost always because the story is so strong and it shines through in spite of the structure as opposed to because of it. And this corporate creative production structure is what Tomino is actually warning against. And to really understand his point, all you really need to do is think about how stories are actually written. It's usually one writer in a space he or she feels very comfortable in, where the inspirations, ideas come easy, where they have their feet up a little bit, where they may be able to just kind of, stretch out and lie around on the floor or on a couch if they need to. They have coffee or tea at the ready. And sometimes, they like to go for a walk. In my case, I like to be able to, sit, stand, lie on my belly and, sit on the couch with my feet up. And that's how I like to create and write. But the key thing here is about the intimacy, is about the story has to be coming from an emotional place, an emotional conceit, a kernel that is emotional in nature, that has nothing to do with dollars and cents and nothing to do with a spreadsheet or focus groups or PowerPoint presentations or some executives concerned about, quarterly returns. Because the audience, the end consumer, the people actually buying the tickets to these things do not show up to a movie or want to hear story because the PowerPoints or the charts or the fucking line graph said something. They come in because they have an emotional resonance with what they've seen on the trailer, or the premise of the story has some sort of emotional resonance with them. Now, I know some of you are thinking, hey, Fushel, there's like a whole army of thousands in the credits of these movies. What the fuck are you talking about? You don't need a whole army to do this. Now, to produce a full-on movie, you do need an army, more or less. But to create the emotional core of your story, the emotionally charged kernel of the story, of the conceit of the premise, of the bones of your story, what you need is an actual creator who's deeply passionate and emotionally connected with the story idea and the story premise, as well as a small team, 2 or 3, I would say, is more than enough to build the initial visual designs and visual look and feel of the story. To give you an idea how this process might look, I'm going to show you my work process with an artist and designer on my sci-fi racing concept, Acro Racer, for the Ayatana universe, which I created. If you're curious about our brand, the link is also in the bio, shameless plug. So I'm going to show you a quick glance at how the character design process for this Acro Racer concept went down. So you can see the process really started in earnest back in 2021. This is when I started looking for talent and started doing hiring calls and interviews. So we start off with final deliverables and what is expected through the work process, and then I give him the overall design overview for this particular concept and the racing vehicle, racing team, racing concept, and character. So provide him with some references here and there. I'm going to go over these real quick because I'm going to be making more content on these later. But you can see it gets pretty detailed because it's always better to be more detailed with your designer and creator than not. I also provide chicken scratch sketches. I do have an art background, but like I'm nowhere near the caliber these guys are when it comes to actual design and drafting and how these vehicles are supposed to move in space and how the pilots sit and all that fun stuff. The racing starting grid and a few things here. Again, sketched it out for them. So it gets really detailed. As you can see, these are also references from both the real world and the concept design world. Some older designs, and this is what the character. This was actually for the vehicle design. This character was already created, but you can see this process at work. So that was just the interaction between me and two other people at different times. The character design was done by one person, and I saw another designer in a completely different part of the world for the vehicle itself. So this is the kind of results you can get if you know what you're doing, if you're passionate, if you're driven, if you believe in the idea, if you believe in what you're doing, and you came up with a story from an emotional inspiration. And if you haven't heard me say this yet, I have a day job, a full-time day job at an insurance company. Okay, I spent 8 years in Hollywood, and now I'm building my own company with my own story IPs. And with this skill set, I could not get hired at any Hollywood studio, and I applied to pretty much all of them. And in hindsight, that is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me because now I get to build my own media company and fashion brand that actually directly is able to connect with the IPs I'm creating. Suffice to say, I think any move from the Japanese anime industry going towards a Hollywood model is a very, very unnecessarily bad idea. The Gundam creator is absolutely correct in his assessment, and I really hope that these Japanese studios understand that there's a reason why they've been successful for so long. They don't need the horseshit that's going on this side of the pond.